That's a hard one.
NBS Frontline.
For years now, the judiciary has faced a challenge of case backlog in all its divisions, with the result that some people have been seeking justice for more than 20 years to no avail. The public's loss of trust in the system has pushed some to come up with solutions such as establishing clusters that can handle cases at the local level. All this comes against the backdrop by the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs made on the day he took office to prioritize tackling of the case backlog.
And bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So help me God.
It's a year since Democratic Party President General Nobert Mao signed an MOU with the NRM, with the promised changes including the implementation of electoral reforms still hanging in the balance. Questions linger over the fruitfulness of this union. Will the judiciary's plan provide a much-needed answer to those deprived of justice? How exactly will it work? Will Nobert Mao achieve what he set out to achieve in partnering with NRM? Or was it all an elaborate hoax? This is The Frontline.
NBS Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the NBS Frontline. My name is Charles Mwangu Shampagi. Tonight, we turn our focus and put the spotlight on the judiciary, but broadly, the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. So we'll discuss aspects of what is happening within the judiciary, but also ask questions about justice broadly and constitutional affairs, really. We'll be asking questions about that. I have a very big panel. It's a mano, an all-male panel. Let me start from the extreme end. A former frontliner, Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and President General of the Democratic Party, the Honorable Nobert Mao. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you, Charles. I'm very pleased to be back on the front line.
Always a pleasure to have you here. And it's almost, it's about a year since you became minister? Are we close there? Yes. Okay, very nice to have you.
The people in Gulo are waiting to welcome me.
They are organizing a grand
July.
They have decided that they have waited for me to go home for long enough.
So we have a homecoming.
we should start it from the board of the Nile Republic.
Of course, we shall.
Okay. Edgar Tabaro from KTA Advocates. Edgar, it's a pleasure to have you on the front line.
Oh, it's indeed a pleasure, and more so to be seated next to an icon in my world. We both attended that exclusive alma mater called Namilyango College, the oldest school in Uganda. He served as head prefect 87 to 88. And I served as head prefect 1994 to 95. So I'm really happy to be here with Honorable Mao, my senior in many ways, my mentor as well.
Our enemy is called as Fumblers.
Fumblers. He's my mentor in many ways, we'll be talking about it, but also we are told of Tova Kumeini, standby generator. Is the full-time solar panel that is giving the light.
In the tropics.
Very nice to have you. Obis of Namilyango College sitting next to one another. The next is George Musisi. He's managing partner at PACE Advocates. I hope you pronounce this as PACE. P-A-C-E Advocates. Very nice to have you, George.
Pleasure to have you, Charles. Great to see you after a long time. And I'm also humbled to be sitting between my member of parliament and my former teacher.
Oh.
Yes.
Who among these, in between, eh?
Yes.
Not the minister.
Edgar was my teacher, and we disagree on so many things, but we are good friends.
Okay.
Did you pass his paper?
Highly.
with
He
distinction.
was one of my best students.
When did you start disagreeing?
Then you are the one disagreeing.
No, the quality of a teacher is seen through their product.
No, we should investigate when you started disagreeing and on what. And last but not least, frontliner, Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality, spokesperson of the Forum for Democratic Change, the Honorable Ibrahim Semo Junganda, my former colleague. We worked together at some point. At Monitor. You see people introducing how the connections.
The nexus.
The next, yes. Yeah. The nexus. Of course, the people at the Monitor are mourning the loss of the wife to the founder of that organization, Alice Ofol. Alice Ogutu.
Monitor was not founded by one person.
One of the founders. He was. Yeah. Yes. One of the founders.
Augustine Ruzindana was one of the founders. Huh? The name was given by Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, the Daily Monitor.
We'll discuss that. But to Waf and the team, condolences. I mean, to Waf and the family.
We're in the church today,
condolences.
and
yes.
burial will be Saturday.
Yes, I was at the vigil yesterday. Yeah. We'll be discussing matters in the judiciary, but also we can't mention the death of Alice Ogutu and forget the death of Justice Stella Arach Amoko, which matter dragged into a lot of controversy and had to end with a court decision on where she should be laid to rest, which decision went in favor of her preference, her dying wish to be buried in Nebi.
Her reported preference.
Court decision is a confirmation.
No, I'm addressing you as a journalist.
Yes, and I'm speaking to you as a lawyer.
And I would like to speak as an expert. The matter to do with her burial was decided in a record 7 days, 8 days.
Less than that.
A similar matter in Kenya, SM Otieno and Wambugo, was decided after 254 days.
254 days.
254 days. A very senior lawyer, Sylvanus Otieno. He lived large, like many lawyers do in Kenya. It's nothing personal. It's public knowledge. And he was married to a Kikuyu. And his preference was, he had mentioned to the widow that his preference is to be buried in Ngong Hills in central Kenya. The clan couldn't have anything of it. And the matter was litigated on for a very long time. It generated a lot of press, media coverage. The lawyer for the clan, the certain Richard Quach, who later served as Justice of Appeal, another equally flamboyant Luo person. So it made really good reading, the submissions. So drawing parallels with Uganda and the subject we're going to discuss today, being decided in a record time is quite uplifting in such organizing scenario.
This is your docket, Honorable Minister.
There were attempts to mediate, but the emotions were too strong. But this afternoon I spoke to the Secretary to the Judiciary, and he confirmed that the opposing party has, with some reservations, accepted the decision of the court, the way Al Gore did. Remember, Al Gore said, I disagree strongly with the decision of the court, but I respect it. So they have chosen to respect it. So I think they have emerged as winners, all of them, so that the conflict does not continue to flare up. It's a good thing. It was a difficult decision, but that's what judges are supposed to do, to make tough decisions.
One question that people have been raising, and I think it's important that I have a whole panel of 3 lawyers led in the hierarchy here. He's head of the bar, and
There's the Attorney General.
The Attorney General is the head of the bar, but I'm saying in the hierarchy
in the hierarchy here, you're senior
you're senior to.
I'm a member of the bar. I'm a senior member of the bar.
You're the most senior on the panel here.
Honorable Mao actually used to go to court under Kabugo and the company advocates.
Yes. As a senior member.
On Buganda Road many years ago. Many people don't have that background about him.
Mango.
Yes, I'd like to get a quick comment from each one of you, especially the three of you, and also Honorable Semoju, because you make the laws. Some people were looking to making of wills and asking for a very, very senior person in the legal profession. Should it have dragged on this way? And I've also seen that many people have been sharing formats for how to write a will, where you could indicate your preferences on where you should be buried, among other things. Even when the judge said in litigating this matter, said it's not just a matter of wills, of making a will, the ascertainable wishes of this person should be respected. Let me start with you, Honorable Minister. Any lessons for other people watching us over this unfortunate controversy?
A will is important, but it is a choice. You can choose to write a will, or you can choose not to write a will. There is no vacuum where there is a government. So we actually have laws. So whether you write a will or not, your property will be distributed. But it is better to write a will. We have a member in the cabinet called Chofa Togabye, Walumbe Yagaba. If you don't distribute your assets when you are still alive,
The death will sort them out.
then death will decide who gets what. I don't blame anybody who does not write a will. It's a choice, but it is advisable to write a will, because then your intentions are made clear. And where there are controversies concerning places of burial, it is better to state it.
Edgar, your quick take?
You know, I'd like to draw parallels with the SM Otieno case. Aluo from Kenya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, was late Justice Stella Arach Amoko. She too was Luo from the Jonam community and the granddaughter of a Rot. Now, I'm meant to understand from persons I've interacted with from the Jonam community that princes and the princesses have a custom they follow. And the burial grounds, the preferred burial grounds, are their ancestral home. They are what you'd call, in Uganda it will be Vijova or Malalo, for princes anyway, for that matter. I happen to be a deeply cultural person, and for me, I'm even more advantaged than the likes of Honorable Mao, who is only purportedly Luo. I am both from Toro and Bufumbira, and sometimes there's a clash in those cultures. Now, you know as well as I do, Mr. Mpagi, that the Babito have their own customs. And when it's a princess, as Mr. Musisi will also eventually tell you in Buganda, a Mumbeja is not treated like any other, all person from the royal family is not treated in like the other ordinary customs that we have. So I looked at the judgment and I think it was all very similar to the SMO Otieno case, only that for her, the Justice Stella Arach was a princess. And unfortunately, a lot of controversy surrounding her burial. She was a towering giant, not physically, but in the legal profession. So I think it's only in the nature of giants to leave a mark even at the hour of their death. And I think that's what has happened exactly in the case of Justice Stella Amoko. Very motherly, very, very knowledgeable in the law, very amiable person to interact with, and we'll surely miss her.
And the string of very critical decisions along the way, along her long career.
Yeah, she made many decisions, particularly in the commercial division. Particularly in the commercial division. I know when she joined the commercial division, it was thin. There were about 3 judges. I think it was Justice Vyamjisha deputized, I think there were only 3 judges of the commercial, four. It was Justice Vyamjisha, who eventually elevated to the Court of Appeal and became acting DCJ at some point. Justice Vyamjisha, Justice Ogola, Justice Arach, and Justice Kiriabwiri. Then when Justice Vyamjisha was elevated, Justice Ogola became the head of the division. So they were operating very thin, but nevertheless were able to deepen, because we're still grappling with commercial justice in Uganda. And there was a project, you remember, a pilot project for commercial, and that's how the mediation,
Commercial court mediation.
So she really contributed immensely to improvement in the administration of justice in Uganda.
A quick one from you, George, on this controversy.
Well, first of all, the controversy was unfortunate. And our master plowed court, the judge really did a good job. Within, Edgar was talking about 9 days, actually 3 days. Hearing was on Saturday. And the judgment was delivered on Tuesday. And I've had the chance of reading critically the 30-page judgment. I must say that Justice Ketra really outdid herself. Increasingly, there are lots of controversies, and I think there was a position of another deceased colleague, a fumbler, the late Bob Kasango. And the position then was that the spouse takes precedence when it comes to burial issues. The judge had the chance of looking at it, and even the issue of the will, because the judge clarified that wills are only important in terms of giving distribution of property. But the most important thing when it comes to someone's burial is the person's wishes, in as far as they can be ascertained. And in that case, I think that is now the law as it is, until it's maybe, because then the spouse takes second place, then the children. So for me, I think that in as far as those controversies have been increasing, now we have some bit of a position until we get maybe a higher court to overturn it or affirm it. I think
another person dying.
So I think
you certainly wouldn't wish this matter to be appealed.
So unfortunate as it was, I think for purposes of jurisprudence, I think it was a very good decision, and maybe it was Justice Stella Arach's last contribution to us as a country.
Yes, and Honorable Semoju.
You see, these disagreements are very common. I think only a few go to court. In the area where I'm an MP, where I was born, and in many areas in Uganda, they are usually sorted out with a small fight. And I don't know why this particular one, and maybe the one of Bobo Kasang, ended up in court. One time I went to bury in Gayaza, and the group that came to snatch the body allowed the whole process. After service, speeches, I was one of the speakers. They waited at the time of taking the casket.
So the burial ground.
That's when they grabbed it, put it on the pickup, and they drove off. So my disappointment is that a person of high profile, who is, I think it is in the law, the lawyers can help, that is a beneficiary of a state funeral, that a state funeral is mad with the disagreements. I don't know what the relationship in the family was during her life, but it also speaks about troubles within our own families. Because, I mean, how can children and their father go to court over the burial of a mother and wife? It's an unfortunate incident, and I don't know, in the future, for me, if people are disagreeing like that, even the state funeral should be withdrawn. Because the state funeral is an appreciation. But I mean, if you are able to put together a family and they are quarreling over you, then what is the state funeral for? What is the state funeral for? That the state arranges to give you a good send-off, and midway you are quarreling. Me, I think in matters like these ones, then we leave the clan and the family to sort themselves out. But I want to thank the judge. She was a good judge, fair, especially in the circumstances under which people are are working in Uganda in that sector. But yeah, this was very unfortunate. A state funeral, midway after parliamentary session, you've put aside the whole day of parliament. Sit parliament costs about 3 billion shilling per day. So you spend all that money, and before the funeral is finished, now people are quarreling. In my faith, those are very simple things. People are being taken to cemeteries that they don't own. It's very simple. But also you people who delay these burials, you are the ones causing problems. Because if someone has died in the morning and by lunchtime
But
you are
3
done,
p.m. you are done.
I don't think you will have...
Before you
sort
even
out the rest of the matter.
before you even know
There
that
will
the
be
person
no
is
quarrel.
passed, is already
the
buried.
quarrels will not be there.
Well, the Kenyans keep their dead for much longer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that can explain that controversy that I was talking about. SM Otieno?
But there was an injunction in SM Otieno.
But ours, you will not have the injunction. If I die in the morning, by lunchtime, by the time you file an injuction, I've
You are
been
ready,
buried.
you are grave.
Yeah.
So it will be of no consequence.
I mean,
Let's go back to the issues we're discussing for today, but this is a good, a significant entry point to come into it. Chairman Mao, let me first come back to you quickly. You've been at the ministry for now about a year. If I could put a very broad question to you, your experience so far, those pressure points and areas that have been touched within the judiciary that you think, and where you feel there is a little bit more work to do.
We have opened up the ministry, and it is I believe, really the most open ministry right now. We have even upgraded what used to be the human rights desk into a fully fledged department. We were able to revive the discussion in cabinet about establishing a cabinet standing committee on human rights, where senior ministers can discuss issues relating to human rights. We have been able to engage with the judiciary to deal with some cases of people of unsound mind who are found not fit to stand trial, but they are detained nevertheless. Some have been in jail for over 20 years. Because if the courts find that you cannot stand trial, they are not going to release you. They are going to send you to prison and remand you until the minister gives an order as to what should be done. We found that there were very many in the courts. So we had a meeting, myself, the Attorney General, the principal judge who represented the Chief Justice, and we have worked on several cases.
Would you share with us a number of mentally ill people that you found incarcerated?
The first batch was over 400, and there are others. So the role of the minister is not to determine whether they are of sound mind or not, but to either order that they be examined again, and if they are found not to be of sound mind, then the minister can order that they should leave the prison and go for treatment. That's definitely a better way to handle people of unsound mind. Then if they are examined and it is found that they can stand trial, then the minister will order that they should go to court and stand trial. And there are those who have spent such a long time in prison that even if they were to be found guilty, they would have already served their sentences twice over. We will definitely recommend compensation for such, because the Ministry of Justice is about asserting rights and redressing wrongs. And these rights are not guesswork. These rights are enshrined in the law, and once the wrongs are proven, then the state has to acknowledge where people have been wronged. Government has got to take responsibility. We also, in conversations with the judiciary, found that 18 trillion shillings is locked up in the court system. Uganda is a country facing threats of sanctions. The so-called development partners are threatening to withdraw support. Even lending institutions are beginning to discuss issues other than money. Because I think if I go to my bank to borrow money, I don't think the bank should have a checklist.
Banks keep something called KYCs, know your customer.
Yes.
Yes, and the KYC might include anything. It's quite a broad one.
I think they should be reasonable. The KYCs should be reasonable. But my point is that it is important for us to get money flowing into the economy. 8 trillion is in the commercial court alone. Now, how is money tied up in the court? We have got contracts where even there are deposits, procurement cases. UNRWA has deposited billions of shillings in the courts while waiting
For compensation.
to settle matters of compensation. And while many people would prefer to litigate until there's a judgment, it is costly, it takes a lot of time, and because it is a very public process, the debate ends up being bastardized. The Chief Justice calls the current justice system, the formal one, the alternative. And he says what we call the alternative dispute resolution is what should actually be the original. Because that's what we had before the colonialists came. Alternative dispute resolution is not anything new. It allows parties to a dispute to sit and discuss in the presence of either a mediator who, by asking a few questions, offering counsel, enables the parties to resolve their dispute by transforming what is a conflict to a new way of looking at the issues in question. You can also agree on an arbitrator.
Or a conciliator.
Yes, you can have a conciliator. Many of the big contracts have got arbitration clauses. For instance, if you have got a contract to build an oil pipeline, definitely you must have a clause that will allow for the appointment of an arbitrator who is agreed. So the objective of this new initiative is to allow parties to talk to each other. It doesn't have to even be only about commerce. It can also be about politics. What the African leaders did when they went to Moscow and later engaged with the president of Ukraine is also alternative dispute resolution. Alternative to what? Alternative to hurling missiles at each other. Even the incident of these people of Wagner marching towards Moscow, and then you get a mediator
Belarus.
in the form of the president of the Belarus. That is mediation.
The best example, sorry for post-election violence in Kenya.
Yes. In Kenya, we had Kofi Annan. He came in the nick of time and mediated. Even here, when we had a conflict in Kisangani, you remember, was it
Claire Short?
Claire Short. The Secretary for International Affairs of the UK was involved in mediating.
White was in Kabale.
All those are,
Those were side shows.
Yes.
all those were examples of a means to end a dispute. And we were very pleased that under the leadership of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and a number of judges and people who worked with us as consultants, we were able to organize the first ever Alternative Dispute Resolution Summit, which brought the leading law firms on board, civil society, and I want to assure everybody that we are going to continue the discussion as we develop the policy.
Let me put a quick question to you before I come to the other members of the panel. Prisons are still brimming, full to the brim with suspects. People still undergoing trial. Many of them still on remand. How quickly do you see those numbers being reduced in the processing of their cases and reducing the burden on the Uganda Prisons Service?
Charles, for the first time, we have more people who are actually convicted than those who are on remand. For several years now,
It was the reverse.
there was a time when we had more people on remand than actual convicts. So the tide has turned. How has the tide turned? Because of innovations by the judiciary itself. We have to credit Parliament for passing this administration of the Judiciary Act, which has given the judiciary more leverage and more say, and to really conduct itself as a proper arm of government.
Semi-autonomous in budgeting.
Yes. And through recruitment of new judicial officers, I believe that in the next 5 years we shall have a magistrate in every constituency.
Sub-county.
For the time being,
County.
we
Chief magistrate or
that is a county.
yeah,
We may have a chief magistrate at every
county.
We are taking a resolution to Parliament to increase the number of High Court judges to 151. We are going to increase the number of Court of Appeal judges to 56. And the Supreme Court will go up to 21. So that means that
And you also intend to break up, not break up, break up is the wrong word. Create circuits for the Court of Appeal.
That's what he's saying, yes.
there are going to be 8 circuits. Already, Mbarara and Gulu are under construction.
Circuits for the Court of Appeal.
Yes, for the Court of Appeal. Then we shall have Mbale, we shall have Mbarara. Eventually, according to the Chief Justice, there will be up to 8. But in all this, we have international partners. For about 15 years, a university based in California, the city of Malibu, called Pepperdine University, has been offering a lot of technical support. Sometimes we see our international partners just like ATMs. We think they're just a source of money, but they're also a source of knowledge. So Pepperdine University, as I talk now, are conducting what we call plea bargaining camps. A team is in Mbarara. And a plea bargaining camp is carried out at a prison where those on remand who are due to stand trial start negotiating. Sometimes people are advised to plead not guilty just as a ritual. But you can also save the court's time. You plead guilty and you get a lighter sentence.
You negotiate your sentence.
Now, plea bargaining has saved the Uganda government a lot of money. And that is the argument the judiciary has been using, and thus persuading the president and the government and the parliament to allow the judiciary to have more resources at its disposal.
Thank you.
Because they save the judiciary money, the government money. Now, if we focus on alternative dispute resolution, it will require us to train lawyers, because there are new skills, and the curriculum of our universities and even the Law Development Center.
It's adversarial.
Yes. You read the typical notice of intention to sue. I'm sure you have received a few. You are threatened, you are told how you are going to suffer costs and face embarrassment. Others even
at your own cost
and peril. Others even add, you know, divine damnation, as if God is a partner in their law firm. Therefore, this is a paradigm shift in the administration of justice. And the judiciary is firmly at the center of it. They are the prime movers because they are the forum where disputes are traditionally resolved. It doesn't mean they will become irrelevant. When we held a press conference about this summit, a journalist asked the Deputy Chief Justice, is this not a vote of no confidence in the judiciary? So the Deputy Chief Justice said, no. In fact, it is a vote of confidence because this is not a substitute. It complements what the judiciary does. We need to train the lawyers, equip them with new skills. We need to accredit centers that can then have a team of arbitrators or mediators who are specialists.
Thank you. Let me first come to Honorable Semuju, and then I'll come to you, Edgar and George. Honorable Semuju, do you see the movement towards making the different arms of government leave that independence? The executive, you in parliament, and the judiciary now. Is significant progress being made in that direction or not?
Very difficult question. But just if you can allow me, from the, I don't know if you are the one who is asking the wrong questions, or the Honorable Mao.
He is creating his own question, answering his own questions.
He's
used to oversight committees, so he's a member of the executive. Is here?
You see, his narrative today is of a person who has settled in the ministry very well to do the normal administrative things. I am not one of those who thought that that was going to be the Honorable Nobert Mao's work. My expectation was that I was suspicious. I thought he would fail, but I thought he would try to sort out the politics, especially looking at the memorandum that he had signed with Mr. Museveni with the two key issues he need, constitutionalism and human rights.
I'll come to that.
You are now asking him simple administrative things, technical things, and I don't think in that area they were lacking. So for me, that's what I am sorry. I am now speaking like someone who is just watching the show. But that's the area where
the good thing I have you as a panelist, you're not just another, you're a frontliner, so
yes,
you can.
That's the area where I'm interested.
Please put the question.
My projection was that he was going to fail, but I didn't know that he will even fail to start. That I didn't know. But if you want to restrict me to the question you have asked.
No, you have the leverage as a frontliner.
So the memorandum that the Honorable Nobert Mao, I remember when he was sworn in Parliament, the Speaker said, please, our expectation is that there will be a Constitutional Review Commission, so the outcome of that will come sooner than later. And I was one of those who are doing the counting. How many days now? Where is the Constitutional Review Commission?
I'm coming to those
Will it ever be reviewed? But let me first answer the question you asked. I said that's where my appetite is. I want to hear the progress the Honorable Nobert Mao has made. And I'll later on tell you why I thought he will fail, but at least he will not fail to start. But the judiciary, the state capture has not left the judiciary. Let me give you examples. We had a disagreement with Honorable Mao when he was Prime Minister. Parliament passed a resolution in which he was being asked to step aside, and the offense Parliament accused him was that he had taken a bribe during some of the transactions in the oil sector. The Honorable Mambabas went to court. Before that matter was concluded, there was a meeting, an attempt to reconcile the Honorable Mambabas with the Speaker then, the Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. And Mambabas was told at that meeting that Mr. Museveni chaired that his case was now pending judgment, and therefore it was not possible to withdraw because the demand from the Speaker was that he withdraw. So the President simply said, call me Odoki, as if Odoki was working in the State House. Can this matter be withdrawn? And Odoki said, yes, it can be withdrawn, even 1 hour to the river of judgment, if the parties that brought the matter want it withdrawn. So my understanding of the issue, and it has remained, by the way, that the President will call the judiciary. I told Parliament when we are passing the Anti-Homosexual Act, which is now an act, that I know the President will be, through proxies, going to court, and he will call court like he did last time, and it will be nullified. Because last time he had a pending visit in the US, and many hotels had declined to accommodate him. One hotel said the owner is homosexual, another one said the workers are homosexual, so we can't have you, sir. So between that, Kavuma had to make sure that the law is nullified. The only difference between the court read by Kavuma and now is that the judges there, they are more decent judges. I think Kavuma was the worst that has ever presided over court. Remember the case of Sechikubo when they accused him of hiding in a wardrobe. They went looking for him with Justice Kanyeham. And they said the Chief Justice was hiding in a wardrobe because Kanyeham said, he was here, you Secretary, show us where he is.
So it's Justice Kanyehamba who alleged that he was hiding in a wardrobe. How did he know?
That's why they said that they had seen him entering the office.
It was a figure of speech. If it came from Justice Kanyehamba, it was a figure
I'm saying that's what happened. I was not there. Said we have seen him entering here. It's not possible that either he must be in the ceiling or he must be in the wardrobe. Can you tell him to get out? So I think that was the lowest moment in the judicial system in Uganda with Kavuma. There are people who can do bad things but do them differently. The other day I was at a radio station and I said, you see, I don't think Mr. Museveni wants to charge his ministers, but the way they stole Mavat was very bad. So it's going to be the way. The way will be the reason they are going to be punished, not the actual stealing of Mavat, because you can't steal.
So you're surprised that the DPP has hesitated to withdraw charges against someone?
Have they withdrawn the charges formally?
But the DPP is not the owner of the charges.
Any charges.
The DPP receives files. And as I said, and I believe it, by the way, that these people, it is the way they went about Mavat that angered the president, not the taking, because there are many things that have been taken. But I mean, you can't take. Okay, I don't want to, but the way they took Mavat is the crime.
Well, you haven't answered my question
So
yet.
the question, I have answered using many words. I don't think the judiciary, on the road to be independent, has traveled even half. Many people go to. I remember when when the Majezi bill was passed by Parliament, we had a debate as opposition MPs. Do you go to court or not? And almost everybody knew that the outcome would be as it was. But we said, okay, for record, we will go to court. And I'm one of the 7 in fact eventually we became 5, said we will go there. Let us put the judiciary also on trial. We brought facts the way they happen, and they started fidgeting. And these are good judges, by the way. They started fidgeting, reading to us legal jargons that we were unable to understand immediately. Because they had, let me give this example. In the case of the first law on homosexuality, the judges nullified all the whole law on technicalities. When we brought the same technicalities, I think the chief just said now, he used the word "sava." We can
Siva.
He said we can remove the parts they are complaining against and leave the law. But the technicalities were the same. That Parliament, in enacting this law, did not follow the procedures. But because Mr. Museveni was involved, they had to find a way of saving what Museveni was interested in. And to make matters worse, Jotham Tumwesige was even the most annoying. He said, even if we nullify it, you will go and pass it. Why do we even waste money?
Because you have done that before.
Yes.
Let me bring in George and then and Dediga, because these are in practice and are interacting with the judiciary, but also from a human rights perspective that George works with very closely. The minister is talking about so many reforms that are coming up. The Honorable Semuju here says, in his assessment, the judiciary, is it on the journey to independence? It is hardly started. What is your reading?
By the way, I've been corrected that the amount of money tied up is 83 trillion.
No, it's not correct.
No?
The one who's giving you the information has it wrong.
No?
It is 18 trillion.
That's what I've got just now. So I thought I had my correct facts, but I got another one. But either way, it is a monumental sum.
83 trillion is about $50 million. Eh?
Yeah.
It's just not possible. I know who is passing on that false information.
You're peeping on the minister's phone, eh?
No, I didn't. I respect his privacy.
No, the source is the secretary of the judiciary.
Young old boys.
So
Let's have George come in briefly before we take a break, because we're about to
yes.
take a break. Yes.
Charles, I think all efforts which are geared towards having the backlog reduced are welcome. And even this effort is uploaded. However, we must look at other issues beyond just maybe coming up with a policy. First of all, there have been several aspects of alternative dispute resolution which have been incorporated in our practice, which have been mooted. For about 4 years, we had mandatory court annexed mediation, that every civil case has to go through mediation prior before it goes to trial.
Which was turned into a ritual.
And why did it fail?
It defeated the purpose of...
Because people would go into mediation and disagree and then still come back.
Exactly. We have to look at the context. Honorable Mao has rightly said that the judiciary is moving this, but the judiciary is not the cause of the cases. Judiciary is actually the last end where the disputes find themselves. We have to look at the context, what causes these disputes in the first place. If you find many of the courts are backlogged with land cases, you go to land division of the High Court, there are cases as far back as 2017, which have not been either concluded or tried in the first place.
2012.
So what causes these land issues? Because if you don't address the contextual issues which cause the disputes in the first place, even mediation will fail. Honorable Mao has rightly cited plea bargaining, and yes, it has tried to reduce the rate of suspects to convicts. However, in many respects, plea bargaining is the only way out of prison. What we have as one of the biggest human rights violations, which is under our laws, is the issue they call pre-trial remand, where after being committed to the High Court, you are committed to be tried at the next convenience session of the High Court. That convenience session can come in 5, 4, or even 7 years. So for some people, plea bargaining is the only avenue out, that if I plead guilty after being in prison for 5 years, I get 3 years and they reduce off the
period spent on remand?
So if you are ready for trial, then they'll tell you wait for the next convenience session, which may come in the next 3 years. He has rightly said that they are thinking of having a Court of Appeal sessions in circuits. If I'm convicted in Mbarara by the High Court and sentenced to a 5-year term, as it has been now, and I appeal against that sentence, there is a very high likelihood that I'll serve my sentence before my appeal is heard. So we need to address all the other contextual issues apart from the disputes themselves, because if we don't address what causes the disputes, Honorable Semuju has been trying to hint on political cases. We have political cases, what we have termed as political cases. We have cases of human rights violations. I was doing some research and realized that in the High Court Civil Division in Kampala, since 2021, has received over 100 habeas corpus applications, where people go to court saying, our people are lost, they are abducted by the state, we don't know where they are. How are you going to mediate over an abduction? We need
someone to produce.
We need the state to produce and explain.
Honorable Mao has been mediating on that matter.
He has been mediating with...
I know he's been to State House and secured, and let me not mention controversial things. I often meet him there.
So you also go to mediate at State House?
Old boys can...
I mean, the occupant was elected by all of us.
Let Judge conclude his thought and then...
No, maybe elected by you, not all of us.
The most importantly, all these efforts, I think, have to be contextualized and look at the root causes of the disputes in the first place. Because if we have a system in place where maybe what is causing the land disputes, the weak laws, by the time people get to court, they already charged up. Honorable Mao talked about the recent dispute we saw in the family division. So sometimes the disputes are high stakes. We've been having arbitration in the commercial court, but the framework also needs to be energized. So for me, I think that alternative dispute resolution is the way to go, but we need to look at what factors have failed litigation, that is the adversarial system. And if we don't address that, they will fail the ADR system.
Let's take a very quick break. I know Edgar will need a little bit more time.
Yes. Some technical.
Let's take a break and pick this conversation up. And of course, we'll be coming back, Honorable Semuju. The questions about electoral and constitutional reforms will be coming in the second bit of this discussion.